Welcome to this week's Property Matters, the show that brings global trends to an Irish audience to help shape your knowledge of the industry. You can contact us on Twitter at iPropertyRadio or by email at hello@iPropertyRadio.com. Your hosts today are myself, Brian Fox, and Carol Tallon. We have an exciting programme. First up, Councillor Jim Gildea, Fine Gael, representing the Killiney-Shankill area, and Councillor Dennis O'Sullivan, Labour, also representing the Killiney-Shankill area, and both sitting on the Dún Laoghaire-Rathdown County Council. They discussed the proposed new developments in Shankill and the Central Mental Hospital in Dundrum. Dún Laoghaire-Rathdown County Council gave planning permission for development to commence on a vast site on Shangallow Castle in Shankill. Construction, I think, will start in the autumn and will be undertaken by the Land Development Agency. So let's just that is correct, isn't it? That is planning permission has been granted.
It was granted by not granted by Dún Laoghaire-Rathdown County Council. It was granted by An Bord Pleanála.
An Bord Pleanála, okay.
And that was 2 years ago.
That was 2 years ago.
So that planning application, and that's done. With regard to the tender, I spoke to the Housing Department yesterday, and in fact the tenders are being examined at the moment. They expect that the notification will be sent to the successful tenderer by the end of this month.
So when you say the tenders are being done by the Land Development Agency, is
absolutely the entire project of 597 units is being
handled by them.
200 of the units will be social housing for Dún Laoghaire.
Yeah,
but the entire site will be developed by one.
Yeah.
It's interesting as well, Brian, that this is the first major project by the Land Development Agency, the LDA as they're known as.
Yeah.
So it'll be a test of their mettle, if you like, nationally to get this one right.
Yeah.
They're, I would say, behind schedule somewhat. Considerably behind schedule. Work should have commenced by now on it. On that, we don't. The housing crisis that there is, and we have been pushing for the last number of years to get this project up and running as quickly as possible. As Jim says, 200 social houses. There's 91 affordable sales houses, and then there are 306, I think it is, cost rental apartments going in there. So it's a huge project on the lands of the old juvenile detention centre.
Yeah. When you talk about tenders, surely would not one construction company do the whole?
One construction company
enterprise
will do it, but somebody has to tender for the job the same as any other major job. The developer is the Land Development Agency.
Sure.
So it will be their project managers who will manage the and work through how the tender is progressing. But some developer, and I don't know, I have no idea who that developer is.
If the Land Development Agency felt that a number of developers need to work it, would there be any problem with that, do you think?
There isn't a problem with that. My understanding is that the first phase of the project will be the 200 social housing units. They will be the first phase of the project, that's urgent, I understand it, because of the urgency that is attached to it. But the LDA will have to get it right, because the if you like, the eyes of the nation are upon them on this one, because it's their very first major project, and if they don't get it right, it will reflect badly nationally, because they have other major projects lined up.
And in terms of social housing, that's 2 or 3 bedroom houses, I suppose, isn't it? Or?
No, a lot of them will be apartments.
Yes,
a lot of them, in fact. The planning permission was granted under the build to rent planning regulations.
Yeah.
So both the affordable rental units and the social housing, with a small exception of some of the step down units, will be apartments.
To buy as well.
Then there is a completely separate block. 2 blocks there. There will be 40 odd houses which will be 2- and 3-story houses, and one apartment block of about 50 units.
Okay.
And
designated social.
And they're dedicated affordable sale.
Yeah. Oh, I hear. Yes. Yeah.
So there's affordable sale and affordable rental.
Right.
Two separate things.
Yeah. And the affordables will be co-financed or supplemented by the local authority, by Dundee.
Yeah. Just to be clear, the 200 are social housing.
Yeah.
They're rental from the local authority and will be allocated off of the council's social housing lists. The 91 affordable sales, as I understand it, will come under the national. There are two sales. There will be two affordable schemes. There's the national affordable scheme and there's the local authority affordable scheme. That the 91 dwellings, which there will be 50 odd, as Jim says, houses. The remainder, the 41, will be apartment sales. Apartment sales. They will go to the national affordable scheme. Now, the difference between the national affordable scheme and the local authority affordable scheme is, one, in the local authority affordable sales scheme, we have to, as an elected council, draw up a scheme of priorities as to how those will be sold. In the national affordable sales scheme, it will simply be advertised and it'll people will apply. And
from anywhere.
From anywhere.
Okay. That's the difference with the Department of Housing regulations.
And who'll administer that? The national part of it, is that the Department of Housing or?
I think it's the local governments administer it, but administer it on behalf of the Department of Housing. Whereas the ones that are administered by the local authority. They come under the scheme, as Dennis said, will be...
you can apply in the first instance from Housing for All, the loan scheme, the affordable loan scheme, or you can apply for a local authority home loan. The difficulty with the scheme, as I understand it, is that there's a cap of value of a dwelling up to €320,000. Now, we know that it is very unlikely that you'll be able to purchase a 3-bed dwelling in South Dublin for €320,000. So there will be an issue arise here. But it's vague at the moment because I don't think the Minister has signed off on the regulations in relation to the national affordable sales scheme. And the local authority is waiting on the Minister so that we can then pass or adopt our scheme of letting priorities, which will be based on maybe residency, work and all of that.
I imagine that the parameters for qualification from a financial point of view will probably be similar. I don't know that yet, but I imagine that will be the case. But again, with regard to residency and things like that, that's something that will be set.
There's still some issues to be ironed out.
Absolutely,
yeah. I don't think they're major issues, but I think there will be. If you take Shanganagh, there may be some units throughout the county, some other units developed by separate developers. But with regard to Shanganagh, I think any of the problems will be ironed out long before the first units are available.
And Jim, I'm sure Jim would agree with me. It is extremely frustrating for us because we've had announcement after announcement after announcement, and yet we're waiting. And people are ringing us. Jim has them, I have them every day of the week, people ringing us up. How can we go about getting a loan or this? Is the affordable scheme up and running yet? And we have to tell them, we have to tell them, no, we're waiting on the regulations from the Minister's office and all the rest of it. And it's just frustrating. I don't know what's causing the delay. I just don't know.
That's my question. Yeah. So really, as I see it then, the land development agency is under pressure now because when you hark back to the old days, to when local authorities were building houses, they were solely responsible, and now we have the land development agency.
Don't see that as a problem, Brian. It shouldn't. It shouldn't be. I mean, if you take going back to a question that you asked earlier about could a number of developers go in there, a lot of the infrastructure that's going to go onto that site, the site is about 9.5 hectares. a lot of the infrastructure that's going to go on there is common. So you're going to have the sewage system, the road system, the open space, the parks, the whatever it is common areas. So there's no...
The LDA are probably mirroring to a degree what the local authority heretofore did in building. Yes, it would be a fair comment to say that they are the nearest entity that is mirroring what the local authorities used to do. So that's why I stress again that they're under pressure to get this.
You ideologically weren't in favour of this some 2 or 3 years back, weren't you?
I welcomed it with caution. I welcomed it with caution at the time. I was prepared and still am prepared to give them the benefit of the doubt. My preference is clearly for local authorities to do like they did in the 50s, 60s and 70s. No mystery to it, build local authority houses if there's a housing crisis. And they did that through those decades and it was successful. Clearly, there's a shift away now from local authorities building large-scale social housing, and I can't see in the foreseeable future that there's going to be a shift in that policy. So you have to deal with the cards that you're dealt with, and that's why I give there's no other show in town except private developers, which I would argue have failed to deliver on the social housing end of things. But certainly I would, there's no other show in town other than the Land Development Agency, in my opinion, which will deliver a significant numbers of social housing.
Well, let's move on. I know this is not your electoral area because the Central Mental Hospital site now has also been given permission to go ahead with the development. What I'd like to know, with so many developments being built there, and I know it's not your particular area, there are reservations about how the local infrastructure can handle it. Have you any feedback on that issue, Jim, as such?
I don't believe there's any big problem left with it. I think there was a lot of, in fairness to the Land Development Agency, they listened to what both the public reps and a lot of the local people had to say. I know there is still one major query over the estate Annaville, where the LDA are proposing to disrupt a very settled community and put an access into the site. Which I understand both locals and the majority of local councillors would say is totally unnecessary, because there is another entrance exit point to that estate about 2 minutes drive away and 2 minutes and even a short walk away. But to put cars, and a lot of cars, through a settled housing estate quite simply is wrong. And we have a similar incident. We have a similar situation ourselves in the Shankill area, where there's an attempt to bring a lot of nothing like 977 units, or part of the 977, but about 200 units in total coming through a housing estate that is in a very settled area. And I think,
where part of Shankill is that?
It's what's known as in Ratsala estate. There's a development on what used to be called Fingleton's Field.
Okay. And, yes, that's been.
But again, it's disrupting a settled community, a play area for kids, where kids have been used to playing, and it's the same with Annaville. Other than that, I think the LDA have actually listened. I know they have reduced the size of the apartments, the height of the apartments, which was a concern of residents. There are still some concerns with regard to the amount of open space for that amount of houses, but that's gone to a board panel at the moment. They're waiting a decision, and I think.
Look, to follow on Jim, this is a huge project. 940 apartments being built there. They have tweaked it somewhat, but I think there was an opportunity lost by this was state lands. There was an opportunity lost by the LDA to put in social housing there. We will get the 10% from what's called the part.
There's 20% on this.
20% of what's called the Part 5, with an option to purchase now. We're not being handed to them. It'll be the local authority. It's an option to purchase the 20% there. But there was an opportunity missed, I think, a huge opportunity missed, because this was state-owned lands to put in a tranche of social housing into that And I'm still at a loss to understand why the LDA didn't proceed to put in some social housing.
Yeah.
But like Jim said, all of these projects now are impacting on local existing residents, and the Abingdon one is a classical example of that, where a working class estate, 50 years old, with Hammerheads cul-de-sac, never envisaged that there'd be lands abutting it opened up and the entrance coming through theirs. I would say I'm sure if it was a private housing estate, I'm not so sure that would happen. It's because that this is a local authority estate, and it's outrageous to turn the lives of those people upside down, literally, by doing what Bord Pleanála allowed in their planning permission.
That is what is really annoying.
I've got to go to the story. I don't know if it'd be fair to ask you to comment on it, but just before so it will add to extra pressure in terms of the very narrow roads coming into Dundrum as well, and on public transport, and on the Luas. I mean, public transport.
And of course, you have a live application in for the old Dundrum Town Centre.
Oh yeah, well we've discussed that many times.
881 units. I mean, that will in close proximity, that will be major traffic implications for the Dundrum area and the surrounding roads and housing estates.
Yeah. What else do I want to discuss? I don't know if it's really fair to put this to you, gentlemen, because there's a report in the Irish Times this morning. I've only come across this now myself. There's been many stories done on it, but and I'm sure it will probably go to court. But on Bord Pleanála may reopen up to 20 Hyde rulings. This is the gentleman, Paul Hyde, who had. It's under discussion in widening internal review triggered by the allegations of impropriety in Mr. Hyde's personal declarations to the planning appeals body, which he has denied. The review also examining planning cases involving Mr. Hyde's brother, Stefan Hyde, a fire safety expert. These include less than 10 cases in which Stefan Hyde was a consultant for Bord Pleanála itself, and several large-scale fast-track housing applications, which included documentation from Stefan Hyde. So it does look as if something is going to be, it will be some sort of review into it in terms of on Bord Pleanála and some dissatisfaction with that. And as you've described there, Janice, I mean, it's a case, and indeed Jim, it's a case now where your involvement with councils, in other words, involvements with planning permissions have been sort of put to the side.
Well, the strategic housing development legislation, I have said publicly, was the worst piece of legislation, in my opinion, which came into place. I think it was because it sidelined the local authorities, and yet the local authority staff were tied up in doing massive backroom work to submit to facilitate the submission of those to Bord Pleanála. Now, hopefully that, or thankfully, that legislation is coming to an end. It's going to be replaced with the.
We're still waiting on that, though, aren't we?
We're still waiting on it. But at the end of the day, to come back to your point, and I'll be careful what I say, because this could end up in the legal arena anyway.
I imagine it will.
But it beggars belief that an organisation such as Bord Pleanála would be caught up in such a mess in relation to personnel on the board. It beggars belief quite frankly, and what will only satisfy certainly our interest and the public interest will be clear, precise, and transparent conclusion to this.
Findings, yeah. Jimmy, did you want to do yours?
Just touching on the SHD legislation, which obviously went directly to An Bord Pleanála. I also was critical of that. And in fact, my party,
well, that was Murphy's initiative.
Absolutely. I don't deny that at all. But I know that all 13 Fine Gael county councillors on the Leary-Rathdown County Council went public on this. And I think we had a press release that we gave to you and to all the national papers way back, calling for the Office of Planning Regulator to have a look at what was happening there. Rightly so, as it turned out, the Office of
Investigation
Planning, the OPRs said, it's not something that we're allowed to do by legislation, so we had to accept that. But my biggest problem, the trust of what the SHD legislation tried to do, I am in favour of and I am in agreement with. But as Dennis has said, it fell back on the local authorities and the planning staff in the local authorities to do a lot of this work. But the single biggest problem that I had with that is that it set aside county development plans. And we have, all 40 councillors and the Leary-Rathdown County Council have just been through the 2022 to 2028 county development plan, and the amount of hours that we put into that, and the amount of meetings we had, and the amount of briefings we had from the council, we didn't all agree as even within parties. So there was no whip, at least not in my own group. There was no whip on it. But the amount of effort that was put in by people to come up with a sensible county development plan and then to have one piece of legislation to take that and to completely set it aside was absolutely appalling. And it gave An Bord Pleanála a charter to do what the hell they wanted to do. And in some cases, frankly, they did do exactly what they wanted to do. And to the detriment of the residents of the Leary-Rathdown and to the detriment of what had been planned 6 years ago for the county development plan. With regard to An Bord Pleanála itself, as Dennis said, I'll be very careful, so I'm not talking about that report that's in the newspaper today. I haven't read it, but I will say that a body like An Bord Pleanála, which has a huge influence on the lives of citizens, not just today, but for the next 100 years down the road, it has to be absolutely above scrutiny, above reproach. It must be transparent. It must be clear.
I'm sure there'll be due diligence done on this now.
And if it's not, I think we need to make sure that the system is investigated to the nth degree, and if there is culpability, in any case, not what's in that newspaper at all, but in any case, by any person. It doesn't matter if they're the person in the car park right up to the person at the top of it. Yeah. Anybody who does anything wrong in an organisation like An Bord Pleanála should be punished heavily.
Right. Interesting times, though, from the point of view of what's going on locally here with the loan development.
Oh, very interesting. And I mean, we can't iterate strong enough again. The county development plan is the Bible, if you like, is the local authority Bible.
Well, we keep an eye on it
for planning. And
going forward now.
They've driven
June already.
They've driven a course coaching forward through it. Yeah. But the interesting thing, just to finish on it, Brian, the interesting thing is that those communities who've had the financial wherewithal to challenge some of the decisions taken by An Bord Pleanála to the courts have been quite successful.
Yeah, those judicial reviews, in other words, which are expensive.
But they're expensive. But very, very, very briefly on this, Brian. We have to remember, though, that with judicial reviews, and I've heard developers giving out about judicial reviews is where somebody, somewhere along the line, did not follow the law to a T. Right. It has nothing to do, judicial reviews have nothing to do with planning.
Yeah.
Nothing whatsoever to do with planning. And you hear this muddying of the waters to say that it's a terrible thing that citizens like us sitting here can take a review to the High Court. It is a review on the basis of law, not on planning.
93.9 Dublin South FM.
And welcome back to iProperty Radio with myself, Carol Tallon. You can contact us on social media at iProperty Radio or email hello@iPropertyRadio.com. This week on Breaking Ground, I'm chatting to show regular Ralph Montague of ArcDocs to talk about the upcoming BIM Coordinator Summit, which is taking place in the RDS and online this September. Ralph, you're very welcome back. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Carol. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Ralph, the BIM Coordinator Summit, this took the industry by storm last year when everybody was in lockdown and there wasn't a lot happening. So talk to us about the BIM Coordinator Summit and the concept, first of all.
Yeah, well, actually, it started when COVID started. We offered at that time a free sort of program just to help people in that difficult period who wanted to find out about BIM, and we had a fantastic response. Over 5,000 people from around the world joined that program, and so last year we decided to host a summit to bring all these people back together. But we opened it up to the public, and we had almost 15,000 people from around the world register for this virtual event last year, which was, an incredible response. And so what we're planning to do this year is to do a hybrid event. So as you mentioned, a live event in Dublin, but also to broadcast all of that internationally to sort of serve the whole community. And that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to build a community of people who are interested in this sort of digital transition of the AEC sector. And that's our mission, I think, is we want to affect change in the sector because, everybody knows the sector is vital to society. It provides the buildings and infrastructure that support almost everything we do. But at the moment, it's very slow and expensive and dangerous and corrupt and wasteful and unsustainable. And even in a first world country like Ireland, the sector is failing to deliver the housing, the education, the healthcare, transport, energy needs of our society. So, and it's even worse.
Do you think that's an industry failure?
Well, it is the industry that has to deliver that infrastructure, and whether there's lots of debate about what's causing that failure, but definitely the digital transition of this industry could help improve a lot of that by making it more productive and more transparent and able to deliver on these needs. And because nothing comes about within the industry without information, and the quality of information that's produced to sort of execute the work impacts on the performance and outcome. So our mission is to raise the awareness of the value of information and drive adoption of these digital processes at scale. And that's really the way we're going to go about that, is to recognize and appreciate and celebrate the people in the industry who are delivering excellence at the moment in information management. So we call them the kind of BIM heroes of the architecture, engineering, and construction sector.
And are they all from the private sector? Because I know you're putting the blame kind of squarely on the industry, but surely the public sector has a huge role to play in this as one of the largest procurers and project managers within construction. So do you think, because
I'm not blaming anyone, I suppose that's important. And I don't see a sort of us and them situation. Like, the public sector is part of the industry. The public procurers are part of this industry. The private procurers are part of the industry. It's not sort of the delivery side versus the procurement side. Like, everybody's part of the sector, in my view. And together we have to solve this problem of delivering the infrastructure that the world needs, not only in Ireland, but like around the world, like even in third world and developing countries. There's an enormous challenge, and we need to deliver that infrastructure in a way that is sustainable, that doesn't have a tremendous impact on our environment, because everybody knows that the construction sector is one of the worst polluters, in terms of waste of raw materials, the sort of production of CO2 and energy use, etc. So there's lots of problems, but we're not going to solve these problems by saying it's you against us, or I blame you, or whatever. We have to.
No, that's
we have to come together as a sector. We're all part of the sector. We all need the infrastructure, and we all benefit from the infrastructure. And we have to do that by transitioning from outdated practices to modern practices.
You're absolutely right, Rob. And over the last 12 months, we've seen a huge commitment from government in terms of the Build Digital Initiative and the upcoming Centre of Excellence for Construction. So we are seeing, on the face of it, public commitment to this. I know I ask you, and I ask most of our guests when we talk about digital construction, where Ireland is in terms of adoption. To my mind, looking almost from the outside, it feels like a lot has happened in the last 12 to 18 months. Is that just what I'm seeing? Is that an accurate representation of what's happening in the marketplace?
Well, I think definitely COVID has boosted the digital transition. People had to suddenly learn how to work and collaborate and cooperate across digital technologies rather than sort of in person. So that's definitely helped the situation. I think there's definitely an awareness, a greater awareness amongst the industry. There's still the challenge of the fragmented industry and people sort of reverting to what they know rather than trying something new. You know what I mean? So the outdated old school practices of paper documentation and those are fully embedded in society it's very difficult to change it. Even our planning system. I mean, we've been talking about e-planning for many years, but you still have to submit 10 printed copies of your drawings to the planning authority. And then the planning authority then sort of attempts to scan those to sort of digitize it. It's very outdated. And so there's a lot of work to do.
It's interesting whenever we look at BIM, I get very excited about the progress that's been made. I get excited about the evolution, and then we bring it back to how it fits into the ecosystem that it has to fit into, as in going through our planning process and actually being used then by not just the project owners, but by the main contractor, by the subcontractors across the supply chain. And this is where we tend to see maybe some of the fractures within it. So I was genuinely surprised to see the sheer scale of the community that's now pulling together, because we know there's so many different drivers for tech adoption. So whether it's regulatory or whether it's efficiency, whether it's driven by different metrics, whether the ESG metrics around not just productivity but environment. A huge part, like the biggest nut to crack, is always the culture change. And here you kind of reverse that. You flipped it on its head. So you have this huge and growing community that's really pushing hard, almost beyond kind of maybe what the ecosystem is designed to do. So were you surprised to see the sheer number here? Because I know you mentioned there last year you had something like 15,000 people globally signed up. And I know that community has since grown to in excess of 17,000. That's a huge number of professionals all focused towards digital and kind of information management.
I think we changed the message. Like, I mean, we've been in this business for 13 years trying to work with clients and design teams, trying to change people. And I think we changed the message and we said, let's work with the people who want to change rather than trying to convince the people who don't want to change. And, so let's connect with people around the world who are genuinely interested in this way of working and are doing amazing work. So even within the difficult environments, procurement environments that everybody else has to work in, people have excelled and used these processes and technologies and standards and have driven amazing projects. So it can be done, and people have showed that. So we changed the focus to focus on those people and to recognize and appreciate those people and celebrate those people, like to put them out there as shining examples of what a possible future for this industry could be like, and is actually a reality in certain sectors, and so that's really what we're trying to do.
I think there's a life lesson in that, to work with the people who actually want to change rather than putting all your energy into trying to change the minds of the resistors. There's definitely kind of a life lesson, if not an industry lesson there.
Well, that's a reality, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen that book from Geoffrey Moore of the adoption of technologies, but there's a normal distribution curve, and at least 50% of people are going to be in the late majority and laggard category. And then within the other 50%, you have innovators and early adopters, and then the major early adopters, etc. So, just to shift the focus from trying to convert the laggards who probably are just holding out to retire, don't really want to change, to the people who want to change.
And, I think that's a really powerful message. Tell me, who are you most excited about, or what are you most excited? What topics or which speakers are you most excited about for September's summit?
Well, so first, I suppose the topics. I mean, what I really love about this community is the focus has shifted from sort of design and construction to the whole life cycle. So we've divided the whole conference into 8 themes to cover everything from early stage planning and the client's needs to design and construction, obviously, but then operations and things like the golden thread of information, the digital twin, using immersive technologies and upcoming technologies, and down to really important subjects like data governance and making sure that information, the quality of information, is carried through all those stages. Looking at technical issues like interoperability, and then a big subject which I'm really passionate about is driving the competency. Digital competency is something that is really lacking in our sector. We have to educate not only young people, of course we have to educate young people and we have to give them the means to operate in a digital future, but the existing industry that's out there have to reskill, tool up, and become digitally competent. And so all those subjects are really important. And then we have speakers, like incredible speakers from around the world. We've got over 100 speakers lined up for that, covering those topics. So within each of those categories, we have keynote speakers and specialists. And then we also have some sort of specialist lounge areas. Obviously, one of them is the one we're talking to you about. But we want to showcase and demonstrate the very best in AEC technology and practice. We want to bring together professional practice. So we've got most of the professional bodies coming together in a space where they will talk about what each of the bodies are doing in relation to the digital adoption. And then your own spaces, we're talking about the Place XR, like what is the future technology using the immersive technologies of AR, VR, and even the metaverse. What does that mean to our sector in the future? So an incredible lineup. Yeah. I'm really excited about it.
There's a huge range there because we might just go back. Obviously, I'm excited and people are probably sick of me talking about, say, the immersive technology side, but I just see so much potential there. And the rise of digital twins has linked so nicely and enabled so much of our the aspirations we have for using immersive technology. So I think talking about the metaverse, it almost feels like an overlap. So it reminds me of when the term PropTech was coined, because what we realized is that there was people doing it maybe 6, 7, 8 years. And the metaverse is a little bit like that. We've seen technology move in this direction. So now this movement has a name, but it almost doesn't add anything further to what was already being unleashed. And if anything, I wouldn't like to see it limited, because what we're seeing is that by having digital twins, that is just the start of unleashing the potential, not just for individual buildings, but across smart cities. So I'm so excited about what's happening.
But at the core of all that, Carol, is data. Information. So like these concepts of digital twins and metaverse, and they're just concepts until you have good quality information. If you still have all your information on printed documents sitting in a box in your basement of your building, it's not working for you. And
and that brings us back to what I know is a key focus to you, and that is digital competency across the industry. Now, I know this summit is an international one; it's a global one, and there's huge numbers involved. But let's just take a step back and look at the Irish marketplace. Where are we in terms of? I know we've talked about digital adoption, but in terms of digital competency across the industry, where are we? How do we rank against other countries?
Well, I think we ranked very well. I mean, if we just look at the numbers last year of 15,000 people registered, Ireland was in the top 3 of the countries. So we had people from over 100 countries registered, but in terms of numbers, Ireland was in the top 3. Now, of course, some of that's got to do with the fact that we're based in Ireland and we're promoting that. But still, I think it shows that Ireland is really up there with the best. And even this, looking at the community and even the registrations for this year, we're already at about just under 5,000 people that have already expressed an interest in this year's event, and we're still up there in the top. I think Ireland this year is actually still at the moment is number 1 of all the people interested. So there's a high interest. I think there's a really good competency in Ireland. Ireland in certain sectors is doing incredibly well and sort of servicing the European and other markets with its competency. But it's almost like we have a two-tier system, because there'll be other people in the industry that don't even know what BIM is. You say BIM and they think you're talking about Bord Ishkamara, the Irish Fisheries Board. And so we have this bizarre situation where you have some really shining lights in the industry doing incredible work, and then a vast majority of the industry that's just not engaging.
Okay, well, look,
for whatever reason. Yeah.
To be fair, I don't think there's another company in Ireland who is doing as much to drive engagement across the industry as yourself and the team at ArcDocs are doing. But so the range of topics is huge. But when you say 100 plus speakers, that can almost seem overwhelming. So tell us, who are the kind of BIM rock stars or digital construction rock stars that we need to be looking out for?
Well, let me first say it's not overwhelming because of the topics. Like, people will have specific topics. If you're a designer, you'll gravitate to the design stage or whatever. So within each topic, there's a small number of speakers. It's just when you put it together, it's a large number. But we have some incredible people coming over. Obviously, our good friend Paul Doherty, who's been a great supporter from the beginning of this community. He's the president of the Digi Group. He's a world leader and a thought leader in BIM and developing smart cities and everything. So it'd be great to have Paul over in Dublin speaking at the event. We've got Jonathan Ingram, who you could probably consider him one of the fathers of BIM. Jonathan wrote the original software that would eventually become Revit and sort of power a lot of the software that people use. We have Kimon Numa coming from the United States as well. Kimon has been working in this space for 30 years, developing standards and products and using the web. So, Kimon is talking about enabling web use of BIM rather than desktop use of BIM, years ago, before this even became a thing. Jamie Johnson is sort of working with the UK government in modern methods of construction and platform design, and working with the Digital Construction Hub Innovation Hub, in the UK. We've got Rebecca DiCiccio, who is a world driver in the Women in BIM movement, trying to drive equality and diversity. We've got so many. I can't mention them all, but we'll be here all night, all morning. But amazing people who are willing to come over to Dublin and share their knowledge and expertise with the community to grow the knowledge, the general knowledge within the sector. So it's amazing that these people are contributing what they're contributing. And
but there's a few Irish people that are considered thought leaders in this area as well. I know that I3PT and Invercara will have some of their
absolutely
there.
Yeah, Claire Penny will be there, and Anand Makari from Invercara doing excellent work around the digital twin. And in fact, they'll be sort of leading the operations stage, and I'm really excited about that, because the use of BIM in operations is still the adoption in that side of the sector is still very low. And then we have Vicky Reynolds with i3PT, an incredible company that's driving so the regulations, the compliance with building regulations, and also developing their own technologies around that area. So as I said, there's so many incredible people coming over and giving of their time to just drive this community forward. It's
very good. And Ralph, just before we finish up, you touched on it at the start of the interview, but I think it's one of the really interesting aspects of the BIM Summit last year, because it just went all over my social media feed and it was so impactful. The BIM Heroes, what is that and how does it work?
Well, the hero story was really important when we thought about how do we recognize and celebrate people that are doing good work, because the hero story is almost the underlying story of all stories, if you like. It's the hero has to confront reality and chat, or the chaos, and rescue the treasure. So the from the dragon, whether that's gold or the fair maiden or whatever. The hero is not the person who's choosing the easy route in life or the pleasurable route in life. The hero is the person who's challenging and doing what's right rather than doing what's easy. So when we thought about who are we going to recognize and appreciate and celebrate in this community, it's those type of people. The people who are doing the right thing, the people who are pursuing good information, quality information, not the people who are taking the easy route out or just following, the traditional way of doing things. And so we created this award, and the purpose was to allow anyone in the community to celebrate somebody they recognized as a leader in this area. And so people can go and nominate somebody for this award, and the person would get a physical award, a medal, and also that's announced on social media. So the person getting the award gets some recognition, which is often great, because you find that the people who are doing this great work are often sitting in the back office somewhere and not being appreciated or recognized. So suddenly they're getting recognition, which is brilliant for them. And then, but also the person or the company that's giving the award gets recognized. So everybody gets something out of it. So it was fantastic, and we've had over 500 people recognized through this award system by industry.
I think it's amazing to see the hero's journey, and I think Joseph Campbell would be so proud to see the analogy move from kind of Greek mythology right through digital construction and for building information modeling. So I think that is such a fantastic way to frame it, because actually sometimes when we're telling the technology story, we can forget that actually there is still a story there that needs to be told. So for me, the heroes, bringing the hero's journey into this, I think is so apt. So it's a really important one. Ralph, thank you so much, and well done to yourself and the team at ArcDocs. I'm very much looking forward to September's event. I think it's really exciting, and it really changes the narrative of the struggle for tech adoption into something really celebratory, where the potential is just being unleashed and shared, and just to be able to glimpse at that global potential is really exciting. So thank you so much.
It's a pleasure, Carol. And really looking forward to it, and looking forward to your part in the show as well, which is the immersive technology and the PlaceXR. It's going to be incredible.
Don't worry, Ralph. I understand the brief. We'll bring it. So I'm very much looking forward to it. And that's it from us on Breaking Ground on iProperty Radio this week. My thanks to Ralph Montague of ArcDocs. You can find all information about the BIM Coordinator Summit 2022 online, and you can get in touch with our show here on social media at iProperty Radio or by email hello@ipropertyradio.com. My thanks to the Hear Me Roar Media production team and to Luke Delaney on sound for Dublin South FM. Until next time, thank you for listening.